Boom.
Hola!
Hi. Hi, TransByDef. It's Kara, NetNut7, LV, Lady Vixen, Jayne, aka Jayne, when she said Jayne, and Jenna. And this week's topic is about the impact of movies and media on transgender group of people and how that impacts us, whether it's good or bad, and how we are going to move forward in society and be accepted or not. And there's some concerns, that some of the other hosts have posted that everything's fine and dandy, and then there's concerns that we are going to be portrayed and not given equal ground, or the portrayal that's done is how we are. And a lot of times in the media we are portrayed as villains or the pariah or drug addicts or prostitutes, which, a portion of our community, that's how we survive, being, prostituting ourselves to survive. So, that's a real social ill that, that we really need to deal with and address as a society. But, as far as the media and movies go, is, we have to be careful not to be lumped into that as a group. So, I'm going to this is a round table, and we're going to free flow. And I know that the three of us may have different opinions, and I hope we do, because I'd like to argue with them. But
You argue.
I will hand this off to Jayne.
I don't know. I want you to start.
Absolutely. Okay, so what we're talking about is sort of direction of the trans narrative, the trans story. And I think in theater and movies and in magazines, the narrative has been trans as dysfunction, trans as unlovable, undateable.
So far you had me twice, go ahead.
Okay. And trans as sort of, not really having like professional status, in the work world. And I think that narrative is shifting. And I think that as long as, what we see in media isn't about portraying dysfunction in the trans community. I mean, in any community there's going to be dysfunction. There's going to be addiction issues. There's going to be mental health issues. There's going to be all kinds of issues. But if they just, if that's the focus, that's what people will get the picture of everybody's like that. So I think if there is more of a portrayal of trans characters that are functional, having relationships, being successful and effective in business and the work world, I think things will be more accepting, and
more well-balanced type of approach. That makes sense.
I see that happening.
Yeah.
I see that.
But the struggle is real, and I think portraying and covering the struggle is important. But I think media is obsessed with it because they can sensationalize the struggle more than they can sensationalize, this is a well-balanced person. But if you have, there was a Family Guy not too long ago, a couple years back. They had a trans character in Family Guy, and she ended up having relations with some of the other characters, and they found out, and they were the characters that were just going bananas and nuts, and she was the one that was cool, calm, and collected and well balanced throughout the whole episode. So I don't know, I find that very interesting just in general.
Well, every group is going to have people that are, and that applies to the cis population culturally in geographic areas throughout the world, because we're all going to have our extremists or people that live on the higher end of a lifestyle and the lower end of a lifestyle. There's always going to be poor people and rich people, and there's going to be people that are going to prostitute themselves or try to scrape a life together or be unemployable or underemployable, and that's real. I think one of the things that I see happening is, and I was telling Jane and Kara that, my first gut feeling on this subject was impacted because I had real strong feelings against Caitlyn Jenner. I still don't care for the Kardashian family. I've never followed them, have no intentions of following them, and that's probably more of a personal conviction on my own part. Now, I wish Caitlyn well, but I'm concerned that somebody that is prostituting themselves, that's black and of color, that can't survive, and they're trying to survive on a daily basis, won't have the same experience as someone that's got a TV show and is making millions and millions of dollars. And someone that, I can't tell you how long Caitlyn Jenner has been in transition or not, because I'm not familiar with them. Like I said, I want nothing to do with any kind of connection to the family, let alone watching them on TV. That being said, someone that's struggling would have a hard time being identified. For somebody in normal society, in the cis world, would have a hard time being. Go ahead.
But what about Laverne Cox in Orange Is the New Black, who is somebody of color and is portraying the struggles and adversity of somebody who is, African American and trans?
Well,
I think that
they have a hard.
I mean, like, Caitlyn Jenner is not the only out trans person that has a certain kind of notoriety in the media. There are other, people out there that are setting a precedent.
True. Michelle Henley with Boy Meets Girl.
Yeah.
Upcoming, she's beautiful actress, young actress, trans. Had her own channel on YouTube. Maintains her own channel on YouTube. She did a really good job portraying us in a boy meets girl, boy meets girl meets boy meets girl meets boy, falls in love. A very happy ending, not probably typical for the trans community, but a nice love story. The unique thing about Boy Meets Girl that really touched me, besides one of our own being a part of it, is the fact that Eric Schaefer, the director, sat down with Michelle after he had gone through his whittling process of who he's going to use, and she was allowed the ability to change the script around so that it was more aligned with the real trans experience. And I think, whatever the story was there, I think the fact that Eric saw the benefit of using us real people, real trans people, and letting us change the script, so to speak, of the story to make it more plausible and realistic for someone that's living a trans experience is really it's a breakthrough. We've had one of the things I saw when I started doing research on this. I was very concerned that it was all being done by some guy with big wallets with a suit someplace. And then the more I looked at it, the people that were involved, 8 or 9 of the movies I looked at were deeply involved with trans people working with cis people. Whether they were in front of the screen or behind it, we're becoming part of that storyline. And I think that's going to help drag us forward. I think that's a really good thing for us. My concern is still that somebody will, in Boy Meets Girl, the script is so lovey-dovey that it kind of misses the reality of the storyline.
Nothing's perfect.
No.
Because our experience is so varied. And so how do you encapsulate our experience in a movie or a docu-series? You can't. It's that person's perspective of what it means to them in a lot of ways.
But how do you trust those people? How do we as a community bond the trust that's going to keep us from being portrayed in a negative light?
But what is deemed as a negative light? How do you define that?
Where we're being portrayed, having like, say Michelle has this script, and the next script, instead of being used as an actress for her worth, she's typecast in a trans spot again that might have something to do with showing more skin, and that's her prerogative. But showing her more skin or being portrayed more in a negative light and being typecast as the cute trans girl that's a whore, that she prostitutes herself or whatever.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just using Michelle because it's so new.
Right.
But how do we
So
safeguard not being
to progress
hijacked?
Right. We've played the tranny prostitute. We've played the villain. So basically, what we're saying is we want to progress that. We want to see what's next when it comes to movies and television shows portraying trans person, essentially. That we've already kind of gone down the road of, right? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's next? I mean, we're kind of past that. It's been, done in many ways.
With
many more ways than one.
And I think some focus is going to be taken off of us right now due to the fact that gay marriage has been instituted, but that's going to pick back up again. I think as a community, what we need to do is we need to take the T out of the LGBT, and we need to learn to stand out on our own and have our own spokespeople, like Michelle, like Laverne Cox, Jennifer Boylan. There's a whole. We have a whole 100 list, a top 100 list of trans people. We have that list of people that are influential. That Jennifer Mock, black woman, very successful. Those are the people that really should be helped guiding us forward.
I think it's everybody. I think everybody is a representation of this community. And if Caitlyn Jenner wants to go up there and say, I want to be a representative.
She doesn't represent us.
But everybody in the community represents the community is what I'm saying. And so black, white, Mexican, whatever, of any race should be able to represent the community. And of privilege, not of privilege, it's a mixed bag, and it's everybody. If we start saying only certain people can represent our community, that's divided and conquered. And I don't believe in that. I just don't. I think everyone, it's a level playing field. Everyone should be able to represent the community. Everybody.
And I don't have to like it. Kara might, but I don't have to like it.
But we also get into, okay, if everyone can represent the trans community, are we talking about also not just race, but where you fall on the spectrum? Gender variant people, transsexual people, the cross-dresser type of people. How do you? It's so varied. That's what I'm saying. Our existence is so varied.
Yeah, but the thing about in photography, a picture telling a story is often what you leave out as well as what you put in. And
explain. I'm not following you.
Okay, well, let's say you could have a picture of somebody eating ice cream at a table, but it looks like they're having a nice time. But if you expand out the picture, maybe they're in, some war-torn area, and all you see if the camera is focused on one, part of the picture, you're not seeing the whole thing. Well, I think same thing in the media. If you are seeing one segment of the population, of the trans population, you might think that's it, but then there's this whole other picture, this whole other diversity. And maybe that's what's coming out in culture now, is that there is a whole socioeconomic spectrum, there is a whole diversity of experiences, and the problem I had with Caitlyn Jenner was when she first had her interview and said, hi, don't use my female pronouns, I'm he, I'm still,
It was too weird for me.
And then, but I want to be the spokesperson for the trans community. And then it was like jumping the gun. It was like, well, I want to see you.
I do agree with that.
I want to see
the cart
you.
was put before the horse.
Transition, using female pronouns, living full time,
But
and go, and then playing well with, people in the trans community and making nice and doing something
The cart was
to
going
like,
backwards,
you know,
for sure.
help out people in the trans community, then you're a spokesperson. But that didn't happen.
But-
It was like, I'm a person of the spokesperson, but I haven't done anything yet.
But the thing is, though, let's be real here, is that when you first start transitioning, you're going into this euphoric state where you're finally able to be yourself, and you start living in augmented reality.
Yeah.
And you start, let's be honest, we've all went off the rails. When we first started
I've never
transitioning-
gone off the rails.
You're
I fell off the boat, but I didn't go off the
Sweet,
rails.
you're off the rails already. That's never back on. You go off. You start doing. You go a little. You're a little overzealous, right?
But
You know,
yes,
I
when you
think
first
that's
come
my
out,
credit
the,
for.
the euphoria word we were
That's
using
where I
today.
think she's at. I think she's speaking a little out of turn, but she needs to have and understand the responsibility of that because she has a stage.
Yeah, she's got a stage.
So yeah, I
she's
agree.
got
I'm not
she's got a $5 million stage
I am
that she's
not
being paid.
totally like advocating
sold?
for Caitlyn Jenner. I'm just saying everyone should be able to, be able to represent the community. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, with Kristen Beck, Lady Valor, she put that whole thing about her experience out, her movie. Her book, obviously, the first version of her book was kind of hijacked, and that's the kind of stuff I'm worried about.
Yeah.
It wasn't portrayed. She wanted to get the legal license of that back. The book was, and I don't want to hurt her feelings, but the book it got redundant in spots, and you could tell that somebody was working for the person that was writing the book that was just jamming stuff together to make content.
That's
And-
Hollywood. That's
but-
Hollywood
but-
politics.
Right, but
Making films and stuff.
Kristen Beck has walked the walk and put herself forward where I'm concerned. She did it completely different than Caitlyn did. And that's, I think that the networks, the ABC, CBS, NBC, those networks,
Yeah.
sensationalism is like the order of the day, and that was all staged. The Caitlyn thing was staged. And I'm kind of concerned that, all that was, and that's part of this concern I have about the media and movies putting this stuff together, because the president of the country doesn't get 2 hours on film to address the country unless we're dropping a nuclear bomb on somebody. That doesn't happen. And here we have a 2-hour interview, and 3 weeks later they're launching a television series and she's getting paid $5 million, and you're the representative. That's the kind of stuff you wouldn't make that statement that you're the representative of the trans community, not knowing that you have
If she
$5
was
million.
really the representative of the trans community and it was like a real life scenario, have her go and apply for a job at McDonald's.
There you go.
And see what happens. Have her go and do a real life as a trans person.
Have Kim drive her there.
But that's not
In her Porsche.
Yeah.
In her $180,000
person
Porsche.
experience.
So
Here's the thing, though. It really, when it comes down to it, we're talking about how we see a lot of content that this trans-specific is not being satisfactory. Correct?
correct.
Okay,
Absolutely.
but here's where we start. If you take the long view, we're starting with the progression. And right now we're taking the very topical, stereotypical crap, and that's what's being portrayed as a trans person. But hopefully down the road, as we progress past that, because the thing is that you have to spoon feed middle America the things that they can relate to the quickest and the closest. And what is that?
And it has to be real. It can't be.
I
It has to
remember
be real.
seeing
It has to be real.
transsexuals on Cops. Remember that? That's
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
only
yeah,
time
yeah,
I would see them, or Maury Povich,
yeah.
or right? Well, we're past that now. Now we see them in television shows. Now they're still playing convicts or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm hoping one day it will progress to where it is favorably showing a trans person their experience, but it is a progression. It takes time.
Or
we have to be
being used,
patient as a community, is what I'm saying.
or being used in roles that are, we're using you because we like you in this position, not because you're trans, and you're not playing a trans
Look
character.
at women and sexism and all that sort of thing, and how long it takes, and there's still, a lot of problems with that. It takes time and persistence, and it's not gonna happen overnight. And I think that eventually there's enough responsible people in our community that are gonna make sure that eventually the true stories will come out.
And I
right
think-
now we have to settle for Caitlyn Jenner and how it's a little bit not really. the whole truth of the community. But I think eventually we'll get there.
And
That's all I'm saying.
I agree with you, and I think that we talked about this at lunch today. The older members of the community are going to ones that have made this life commitment. You called it a life commitment today.
Yeah.
Have made a life commitment to walk this path and walk this way for the rest of our lives, and that way the youth, are going to just walk right into it.
But when you were talking about youth and being around trans youth, and they're not quite necessarily the same as what we think and our experiences are.
Because they're different.
We don't know. You know what I mean? It's like we're setting the stage for something that may be completely different.
We're sort of stratified as a group because there are those who transition young, those primary and secondary, as they say, the ones who got the hormone blockers and didn't have their had the what do you call it when you're 12, 13, 14, you go into what do you call that? Puberty, thank you.
That's
ding,
right.
ding, ding.
Estrogen mode.
Ding,
Yes,
ding, ding.
yeah, estrogen mode. You go into they actually experience the puberty that they wish they had, and they have the socialization that they wish they had. Whereas people who transition later in life don't have those things and have a different struggle. And I think people, the younger trans kids, like if you go to the Philly Trans Health Conference, they're all going to hang out together, and then we're kind of stratified by socioeconomic stuff as well as age.
Yeah, well, you didn't. I mean, I didn't hang out with my parents as a teenager, so I mean, I think that's kind of normal. Finding your way and separating, going your separate way from adults as youth. So, but I think in our instance, it's probably going to be a little bit more magnified, maybe compounded, magnified, because we're walking as adults. We're walking a path that they never had to experience.
Yeah, but it's on a comparable level. It's like, do you want to be compared to a cross-dresser?
No.
Okay. But does somebody who transitioned very young look at somebody who's older, who
Accepting
doesn't
parents,
have,
right?
and do they look at us in the same way and saying, I'm not transgender like them?
Exactly. And so being more variant is much more commonplace with younger people as well. I say younger people, like common people. No, but it's,
you're not even 30, Jane.
I'm elderly.
You're elderly.
I'm elderly.
Okay.
It seems like the younger folk are a little bit okay with being a little bit more variant. They
Right.
kind of like to test things out, go back and forth,
Right,
whatever.
right.
Well, even in my generation, it was about you switch from one to the other for the rest of your life. Or at least that's what you're going for. That's the end goal. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe things are changing to where it's, I don't know, I can only speak for myself.
Do you think that movie producers, TV directors, media, the film media, do you think that they're looking at us differently now, or do you still think they're looking at us as a paycheck?
I still think they're looking at us as at least, M to F as, a man in a dress syndrome. I still think that's, you have the trans face and the man in a dress, and I still think to where they're at, these more simple folks out there, that's all they can relate to. I don't know why I have this accent. And I would hope one day we would try to.
You're from the middle of the country, that's why you have an accent.
Maybe.
Yeah.
A little bit. So,
I don't know. I just hope that, going forward, I think that the older generation of trans folks are going to have to still be vigilant and walk the walk and make sure that the work's being done. Because I think the younger people are going to take for granted what's going on.
I hope they do. I hope that we get to the point where the young people can take it for granted. I mean, we take it for granted to a certain degree.
Yeah, but I live in a Republican stronghold community, quiet bedroom community, and everybody knows who I am. They know my past because I haven't moved and I've stayed. And they've kind of, people make comments to me, and I have a neighbor that said, Bruce Jenner, whoa, and I'm like, well, I don't get it either, but
Exactly.
But I wish her well, you know. But I don't know if the rest of the country is gonna, you know. I've always maintained that I lived, you know, as crazy as a shithouse bat that I am. I've always maintained that I lived kind of a stable, continuous, you know, existence, so that what you see from me today is what you're going to see tomorrow. And if I'm crazy today, you're going to see crazy tomorrow. So, but I think what I hope for is that directors of media will take someone and use them like Laverne Cox or Michelle Henley and use them again, but use them in roles that are the same roles that we were given to assist people to play as trans in the past.
Right.
Reverse the cards a little bit. You know what I mean?
Oh, I would love to see trans people play cisgender people. Like you're cast for a movie, and that's just.
See, part of the thing with Laverne Cox that bothers me, she's a transgender person in a prison.
Well, exactly.
You know, and that's like
But that's
that
where we're
stereotypical.
Right. That's where
bullshit.
we are. Right. No matter, we live obviously.
I mean, it's a good role. Don't get me
day.
wrong, and I like that.
That's where society is at. That is where we're at.
She has a new role as a trans attorney, though, doesn't she?
I don't know how it's evolving.
Okay.
I don't follow that.
So what
that
about
closely.
what about the L and the G? Okay, of the LGBT kind of. You know, where do we think we're going to be with them? You know, with I know we're getting a little bit off topic here.
Gender
with
and
legalizing-
sexuality, railroad tracks.
But I just had, you know, I was talking with somebody, she's a little bit older, and she doesn't get it still. She was talking about Caitlyn Jenner, and she said, look, you know, if he wants to be a gay man and dress the way, you know, any way he wants to dress, then so be it. I just don't put it in my, you know, throw it in my face. And again, they still don't get that there is a distinction between the two. But the gay train's gone.
Yeah.
And we're stuck here now to kind of, at least that's how I feel, maybe.
Well, I think we should be, and I said this a little while
so
ago,
what
I think
is-
we should be two separate communities. I mean, I've been saying this for 10 years, and I'll probably say it for another 10 years, but I've always maintained that for us to move forward as a group, you know, it's great that we were able to ride the coattails of the gay and lesbian experience, because they have a footprint and a game plan that's successful. You know, it's forward, backwards, forward, backwards,
Exactly.
forward.
But it's linear.
But they are moving ahead, and I think we can use that format, be allies.
But are we going to be able to use media, is the question, to further our community?
I think slowly.
Because I think we've been left behind.
Well, we have.
Do you feel that? There's like dust. I feel like I'm just full of dust.
Hasn't that happened in Congress? You know, when Barney Frank would throw us backwards and not pull us forward.
So
you know?
how are
because
we
the bill would have been killed
progress?
if they included us in it. So
Do I feel like our community is organized? Absolutely not. Am I grateful the Caitlyn Jenner thing got buried under media coverage for, you know, marriage equality? Absolutely, because we're not ready for something that big. Not to say that the Caitlyn Jenner thing is huge, because people have been coming out for decades, right? But I feel like it's becoming more. It's more common now, and the bigger the name is coming out. So I think it's like you know, an avalanche is going to start happening.
Well, and there's going to be pushback with that
And the
avalanche.
pushback. Are we
Pushback.
ready for the pushback? Are we? So I'm kind of